beneath the ordinary world lies a veil, and behind it, the voices of the lost still whisper.
We are your guides into the shadows, where true crime meets the paranormal.
From chilling crimes to haunted histories, we uncover the stories that refuse to rest.
This is Veil of Echoes. There are places where silence feels different. Not peaceful, not comforting. Wrong. The kind of silence that makes you look over your shoulder, even when you're completely alone.
Just off the coast of southern Maine, near the New Hampshire border, sits a lonely island. Small, rocky, surrounded by dark Atlantic waters. For more than a century, men lived and worked there, saving shipwreck victims, watching storms roll across the horizon, keeping vigil through long, isolated nights.
And many of them reported the same thing. Footsteps, unexplained voices, doors opening on their own. The unmistakable feeling that someone else was inside the station. Watching, waiting.
You hear them too, don't you?
The footsteps began at one end of the hallway, crossed the floor above you, then stopped, directly overhead.
You wait, listening, heart pounding, trying to convince yourself it's the wind, the building settling, anything, because the alternative is much harder to explain.
Open the door.
But when investigators searched the station, they often found something unsettling. No one was there.
Some believe the island is haunted by the spirits of those who never left. Others point to a tragedy so heartbreaking that its echoes may still linger within those walls. But nearly everyone who spends enough time on Wood Island agrees on one thing. You never feel completely alone.
This is episode 69, The Haunting of Wood Island Life Saving Station.
Welcome to Veil of Echoes, a cinematic, immersive experience where true crime and the unexplained collide. Because sometimes, the most haunted places aren't hidden deep within forgotten forests or buried beneath abandoned ruins. Sometimes, they stand alone against the sea.
Tonight's story takes us to a lonely island off the coast of southern Maine, near the New Hampshire border, where generations of lifesavers watched over dangerous waters, and where many believe something else has been watching right back.
A place filled with tragedy, isolation, and reports of unexplained activity that continue more than a century later.
We're your host, I'm Lindsay.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Bria. Before we begin, this episode contains discussions of alleged paranormal activity, tragic deaths, and historical events that some listeners may find unsettling. Listener discretion is advised. And before we step onto Wood Island tonight, we want to take a moment to thank every single one of you for being part of the Veil of Echoes community.
Whether you've been here since episode 1 or just recently discovered the show, thank you for spending your time with us.
Every review, every share, every comment, every message. It genuinely means more than you know.
And if you've been enjoying the show, please consider leaving us a rating or written review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Not only does it help us grow, but you may hear your review featured in an upcoming episode. And speaking of our amazing listeners, our June giveaway is officially underway. So at the end of this month, we'll be selecting 2 more winners from our community.
Each giveaway package includes exclusive Veil of Echoes collectibles, including a limited collector tarot card, candles, crystals, and other mysterious items designed to feel like they came straight from a seance table.
So if you happen to light the candles, lay out the tarot card, and hold your own little seance at midnight. Don't say we didn't warn you.
And if you're interested in entering, keep an eye out on our social media pages for all the details. So basically just send us a screenshot of your review to our socials or our email, and then we'll put you in a drawing for this at the end of the month. So good luck.
And we are still looking for your help deciding an official name for our listeners.
We've received some incredible suggestions from all of you, and now it's time to make your voices heard.
So head over to our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok pages and cast your vote, because whichever name wins will officially become the name of the Vale of Echoes community, which I'm excited for.
Me too.
That'll be cool.
And honestly, we can't wait to see what you choose.
And don't forget, Echoes from the Vale is officially open for submissions.
So if you've experienced something paranormal, unexplained, or simply strange enough that you've never forgotten it, we want to hear your story.
Whether it's a ghost story, a true crime experience, a near-death encounter, or a moment you still can't explain, send it our way.
And you can reach us through social media or email us directly at valeofechoespodcast@gmail.com. So a few weeks ago, we had the opportunity to sit down with best-selling author J.D. Barker.
During that conversation, he shared the story of a place that immediately captured our attention. A small island off the coast of southern Maine, near the New Hampshire border.
The more we listened, the more we realized this wasn't simply the setting of a novel. It was a real place with a very real history.
Yeah, I want to see this place really bad, actually.
I do too.
It's really pretty. So I can only imagine seeing it in person. But again, if you guys haven't listened to our J.D. Barker interview, you should. So he's pretty cool. Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. So I was excited to do this, or for us to do this in an episode for you guys. So, but after our conversation with JD, we knew this was a story we wanted to explore for ourselves, because the deeper we researched Wood Island, the stranger its history became.
A place where lifesavers once stood watch through violent storms, shipwrecks, and long nights of isolation.
But according to many who spent time there, they weren't the only ones keeping watch.
And on Wood Island, some believe the past never truly left. This is the haunting of Wood Island Life-Saving Station. So during our conversation with J.D. Barker, he shared a line that immediately stuck with us. A line that would later become one of the defining ideas behind his Wood Island novel. For a haunted house to be born, somebody has to die. At first, it sounds like something pulled from a horror movie, a clever tagline, a chilling piece of fiction.
But when you begin exploring the history of Wood Island, that quote starts to feel less like fiction and more like a warning.
Today, Wood Island looks peaceful, almost picturesque. A small island resting just off the coast of southern Maine, near the New Hampshire border, where the Piscataqua River meets the Atlantic Ocean. Blue water, a rocky shoreline, seabirds circling overhead, the kind of place you'd expect to find on a postcard.
But appearances can be deceiving, because beneath that beauty lies more than 4 centuries of history. And according to many who have studied the island, much of that history is filled with tragedy.
According to research that JD conducted while writing There's Something I Keep Upstairs, Wood Island's documented history stretches back roughly 400 years. 4 centuries of sailors, soldiers, patients, prisoners, and countless people whose stories have largely been forgotten by time.
Think about that for a moment. 400 years. 400 years of storms, shipwrecks, disease, isolation, and death.
How many lives touched this island? How many people arrived there frightened? How many left? And how many never did?
In 1827, the Maine state legislature ceded Wood Island to the federal government. Over time, the island began taking on new roles: military operations, government facilities, and eventually, medical quarantine.
What had once been little more than a rocky outpost would slowly become a place where people were sent when no one knew what else to do with them.
And that's where things begin to change. Because when most people look at Wood Island, they see beautiful scenery. They see history. They see a restored life-saving station overlooking the Atlantic.
But J.D. Barker saw something else. He saw layer upon layer of human suffering buried beneath the surface. And the deeper he dug into the island's history, the darker the story became.
Because long before anyone reported footsteps in empty hallways, long before stories of apparitions and ghostly encounters, Wood Island had already become a place associated with death.
And in the decades that followed, that reputation would only grow darker. Because Wood Island wasn't built to house ghosts. It was built to hold the dying.
By the late 1800s, Wood Island had become something far different than a scenic outpost in the Atlantic. It had become a place people were sent when society didn't know what else to do with them. As disease spread through coastal communities, officials were faced with a difficult question. How do you protect the public while also caring for the sick?
In 1889, a military hospital was established on the island. Additional buildings followed, and before long, Wood Island became a quarantine station. Patients suffering from infectious diseases could be isolated there, far away from the mainland, and far away from busy ports, far away from the people officials were trying to protect.
And then they,
It was like
JD said yellow fever,
fever,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's where they would put them, and then to get better, but no one got better, he said.
Kind of like
Just all
that
died.
tuberculosis hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, Waverly Hills.
Yep.
Sanitarium my ash. At first glance, that may not sound unusual. Quarantine facilities existed throughout the country, but the reality was often far more grim. There wasn't people checking into hospitals for a few days. Many arrived scared, weak, and completely uncertain whether they would ever leave.
According to historical accounts, individuals suffering from yellow fever were transported to Wood Island in an effort to prevent outbreaks from spreading throughout New England. The goal was simple: protect the cities, protect the ports, and protect the population.
But for the people being sent there, it often meant isolation. Imagine leaving everything behind: your family, your home, your community, and being transported to a small island surrounded by cold Atlantic waters. No certainty, no guarantee, just hope.
Just for a moment, try to put yourself there. Imagine standing on Wood Island in the late 1800s. The air smells of salt and sea spray. The Atlantic stretches endlessly around you. And somewhere across those waters, you can see the mainland. You know your family is over there. You know your home is over there. Maybe your wife, your husband, your children, your parents. They're close enough to see, close enough to imagine, but completely out of reach.
The boat that brought you here is gone. The doctors don't have answers. The treatments aren't working. And every morning you wake up wondering the same thing. Am I ever going home?
Or will this island become the last place I ever see? For many people sent to Wood Island, that wasn't just a fear. It became reality. Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
No.
That would suck.
And people think they have it hard nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. These poor people. The island wasn't simply a medical facility. It became a place where many people went to die. And when you start researching Wood Island, that's the reality you run into again and again. Death wasn't a rare occurrence there. It became part of the island's identity.
Medical treatments were limited. Understanding of the disease was limited. And despite efforts to save them, many patients never recovered. Today, it's easy to forget how terrifying illness like yellow fever once were. There were no medical treatments, no antibiotics, no intensive care units. For many people, a diagnosis like that felt like a death sentence.
Think about how lonely that must have been. No modern medicine, no phone calls, no way home. Just the sound of the ocean, and the hope that somehow you'd survive. Day after day, night after night, listening to the waves, watching the weather roll in, wondering if you'd ever see your loved ones again.
For many, that hope never came. And over time, Wood Island became associated with suffering, long before anyone ever reported a haunting. Long before ghost stories, long before paranormal investigators. Death was already part of the landscape.
But disease wasn't the only tragedy connected to the island. During the Spanish-American War, Wood Island served another purpose. And once again, it became a place where people were sent away from the rest of the world.
Captured vessels arriving along the New England coast were brought into the region, and prisoners connected to those ships were quarantined on the island. Far from home, far from familiar faces, far from everything they knew. Many were already exhausted. Many were already sick. And according to accounts shared over the years, some succumbed to the disease and harsh conditions.
What's fascinating and heartbreaking is how many different groups of people found themselves sharing the same fate on Wood Island. Patients, prisoners, sailors, soldiers, different lives, different stories, and different circumstances. Yet they all arrived at the same lonely place.
Whether they were patients, prisoners, or sailors caught in circumstances beyond their control, the result was often the same. Wood Island became their final destination. And over time, the number of stories connected to loss continued to grow.
And this is where things start becoming interesting. Not just historically, but psychologically. Because when people visit Wood Island today, they don't immediately see any of this. They see blue water, historical buildings, beautiful coastal scenery, the kind of place you'd expect to see on a travel brochure.
But once you know the history, it's difficult not to view the island differently. Once you know what happened there, you start noticing the weight behind the beauty.
You begin realizing that beneath every restored walkway, every seawall, and every weathered board are stories of people who suffered there. People who hoped to leave and never did.
It's a question that paranormal investigators have wrestled with for decades. Can tragedy leave a mark on a place? Can human suffering somehow linger? Or are we simply reacting to the knowledge of what happened there? I think all of it.
Same. Feels like it's just all of a collision, like
Oh,
energies just colliding in one hell of a fucking beacon place.
Wasn't that also what JD said? Like, he doesn't necessarily believe in the paranormal, but he believes more so like bad dark,
the energies.
Well, scientifically, the one thing we know is energy can be created, but it cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred. So once that energy comes into play, it never goes away. It just transfers into different objects, entities,
places,
elements.
Yeah.
Like, we become the dirt becomes the grass feeds the animals. It's the circle of life.
I was literally just getting ready to start singing, it's the circle of life.
It is.
Like, literally, as he's saying that, I've got Mufasa on the other side of my brain going, when we die, the antelope, our bodies become the grass. The antelope eat the grass.
Mufasa.
And therefore, we're all connected in the great circle of life.
I mean, yeah.
Straight up Mufasa moment.
That's hilarious. Yeah, straight up.
Truth. Like, that's the one thing science has taught us that will always be true. No matter what happens, your energy is going to be passed on. Once you are created, you cannot be destroyed. You just become something else.
Now I want to watch Lion King.
I know. It's kind of depressing, but I mean, that's life, you know?
During his research, JD spoke with numerous paranormal investigators, groups with different methods, different beliefs, and different approaches.
Yet many arrived at a surprisingly similar conclusion, that locations connected to significant death and trauma may somehow retain that energy.
It's just a lot of energy in one area.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a place like that.
Shitty energy.
Yeah, definitely.
And negative can't exist without positive, and those energies will clash.
That's why, like, even, like, thinking of other places like Auschwitz.
I think that's why, I mean,
it just gives me chills thinking of that place, you know.
When you're seeing spirits, you're seeing an echo of a person in time. Like one of the last times they were actually caught.
I kind of want to visit the Alamo for this, like, specific reason.
That's supposed to be a real high spot because a lot of bad energy went down.
Whether you believe that or not, it's difficult to ignore the amount of tragedy tied to Wood Island. Generations of people passed through this place. Some arrived sick. Some arrived in prison. And some arrived hoping to save lives. And many never left. Which brings us back to something JD told us during our interview. A line that stayed with us long after the conversation ended.
For a haunted house to be born, somebody has to die.
And if that's true, Wood Island had centuries to become haunted.
And despite everything we've covered so far, the island's darkest mysteries were still waiting beneath the surface. No, but I can agree with his tagline, though. I mean, 'cause that is true, because how else would a place get haunted, you know? JD told us he wrote down this tagline, like, because he always knew he wanted to write a haunted house story. And he wrote this, like, years ahead of time. And then when he saw this house is when he, like, the station, because he lives right near it, but, that's when it just clicked with him, and that's what, But that's what his story's about. I mean, they bring Ouija boards in the story.
From what I've listened to so far, it's been good. I need to finish it.
I'd like it to become a movie. That would be cool.
Be interesting.
I think it'd be a good movie.
Be a good game. Escape from Wood Island.
Yeah. For decades, Wood Island had been associated with quarantine, disease, and death. But in 1908, the island entered an entirely new chapter. A new structure was built overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, one that would forever change Wood Island's history, the Wood Island Life-Saving Station.
The station was constructed by Sugden Brothers of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, designed by architect George R. Tolman, and built to serve one purpose: saving lives.
It replaced an earlier station known as Jerry's Point Station, across the harbor in Newcastle, New Hampshire. And from that moment it opened, the men stationed there knew their job would be dangerous.
The men assigned to these stations were known as surfmen, and their responsibilities were unlike anything most of us can imagine today.
This wasn't a job where you sat behind a desk or monitored radar screens. These men worked directly against some of the most dangerous conditions on the Atlantic coast.
Storms, shipwrecks, freezing temperatures, hurricane-forced winds, massive waves crashing against rocky shorelines. And when disaster struck, they launched directly into it.
Just think about that. While everyone else was trying to get away from the storm, these men were rowing towards it.
And they had plenty of opportunity to prove themselves. The waters surrounding Wood Island were, and still are, dangerous. Has some of the strongest currents in the United States. The tides are powerful, the weather can change rapidly, and the rocky coastline has claimed countless vessels over the centuries.
One wrong turn, one navigation error, one unexpected storm, and sailors could suddenly find themselves fighting for their lives.
Which is why stations like Wood Island were so important. For many mariners, seeing those surfmen arrive meant the difference between life and death. Over the course of its service, the station participated in dozens of major rescue operations. According to historical records, more than 60 major rescues were carried out from Wood Island.
Hundreds of lives were saved, families reunited, sailors brought safely home. Stories that could have ended in tragedy, ending instead with survival.
It's easy to focus on one of the hauntings, the mystery, the ghost stories, but for a moment, it's worth remembering what this building was actually built for. Hope.
Then came World War II, and once again, Wood Island's role changed.
The U.S. Navy took control of the station to help protect Portsmouth Harbor and the nearby Portsmouth Naval Shipyard.
German U-boats were operating along the Atlantic coast, and officials feared attacks on American shipping and military infrastructure.
Wood Island became part of a coastal defense network. Observation posts were established, anti-submarine defenses were installed, and the island once again found itself on the front lines of history.
When the war ended, the property eventually returned to the Coast Guard, but change was coming.
By the early 1950s, operations moved back across the harbor, and for the first time in decades, the station stood empty.
The surfmen were gone, the rescues were over, and the building that had once been filled with activity fell silent. For years, the station sat alone overlooking the Atlantic, watching storms roll in, watching seasons pass, and watching history slowly fade.
And with every passing year, the island's past grew a little more distant.
But some stories refused to disappear, because while the lifesavers may have left, the tragedy connected to Wood Island never truly did.
And before long, people would begin reporting that they weren't alone out there. When people talk about hauntings on Wood Island, most conversations begin with the life-saving station. But some of the island's darkest stories happened long before the station was ever built.
One of those stories dates back to 1896, more than a decade before the current station opened its doors.
And like many other tragedies throughout history, it began with a dispute over love.
According to a historical account, two men named Frederick Milliken and Howard Hobbs became involved in a dispute over a woman. And what happened next shocked the community.
The confrontation turned deadly. When it was over, both men were dead. One of the earliest documented tragedies tied directly to the island itself.
And why the story eventually faded from headlines and never completely disappeared from Wood Island history.
Because by now, Death had become a reoccurring theme on the island. Disease, prisoners, shipwrecks, and now murder. Of all the stories connected to Wood Island, one of the most enduring involves a child. JD mentioned local stories about a young girl reportedly seen running along the shoreline.
At first, nothing seemed unusual. A child running near the water wouldn't necessarily raise alarm.
Well, I mean...
Yeah, if you pull up in the middle of the night.
If I see a child near the water, though, I'd be kind of nervous, too.
Yeah. Especially on a summer day. But according to those stories, there's something strange about this girl. Because no one ever seems to find where she came from, or where she went.
Witnesses describe seeing her running along the beach, always near the shoreline, always near the water. And then, she's simply gone.
According to stories shared over the years, the girl is believed by some to be connected to a tragedy involving someone from the mainland. And what happened to her depends entirely on which version of the story you're told.
Like many legends, the details have changed with time. Some believe she's connected to a tragedy. Others believe she's simply become part of the island's folklore.
But one detail remains remarkably consistent. A young girl near the water, always just out of reach, always disappearing before anyone can get close.
Whether it's a ghost story, a local legend, or something else entirely, the girl on the shore has become one of Wood Island's most enduring mysteries.
The girl isn't the only story connected to the island. Over the years, visitors, volunteers, and investigators have reported other strange experiences as well.
Some describe hearing footsteps when no one else is around. Others report the feeling of being watched, a sensation that someone is standing nearby, just outside of your field of vision.
There have been reports of unexplained noises, voices carried by the wind, and moments where people suddenly felt as though they weren't alone.
Whether those experiences are paranormal, psychological, or simply the result of spending time in an isolated historic location, they've become part of Wood Island's growing legend.
But perhaps the strangest mystery connected to Wood Island isn't a ghost story at all. It's a real unsolved case.
In June of 1972, workers made a disturbing discovery on the grounds of the former Wood Island Life-Saving Station. Incomplete skeletal remains belonging to 2 unidentified individuals.
2 people. No names, no clear explanation of how they got there, and no immediate answers.
What happened next only made the mystery stranger. According to reports, a dispute emerged over who actually had jurisdiction over the investigation. The Maine State Police, the Maine Attorney General's office, and even the FBI's Boston field office became involved.
But decades later, something astonishing was discovered. Records connected to the investigation appear to be missing. Not misplaced, not difficult to locate. Missing.
Not just from one agency, but seemingly from all of them. No investigations file. No clear documentation explaining what happened to the remains. And no answers regarding who those individuals were.
To this day, the mystery remains unsolved, and the identities of those 2 individuals are still unknown. Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, they knew
Or
something people didn't want them to.
How long those, skeletons have been there.
That's
Seriously.
3. One was the FBI, so I mean, none of them had records.
Yeah, apparently.
Not that they were missing, they were just never written up.
Yeah. Almost as though they simply disappeared from history.
This is one of those things that fascinated JD while researching Wood Island, because if 2 sets of human remains could be discovered there, and still remain unidentified decades later, what else happened on that island history never recorded.
That's the unsettling part. We know some of the island's history. We know about the hospital, the prisoners, the shipwrecks, the rescues. But Wood Island's story stretches back hundreds of years, and there are almost certainly chapters we'll never know.
Well, yeah, because again, how long
Well, that was
were those bodies there? Are there any more bodies there?
Yeah.
Or
especially if it was 1972,
yeah,
and they couldn't find these records and they couldn't identify these bodies, and still to this day we have no idea.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Eerie.
People whose names were forgotten, events that were never documented, and stories that disappeared with time. Maybe that's what makes Wood Island feel different. Not one ghost story, not one tragedy, but layer after layer of human history. Much of it lost forever.
And after 4 centuries, who knows how much of that history still lingers there?
Because sometimes, the most frightening mysteries aren't the ones we can explain. They're the ones we can't. By the early 1950s, the Coast Guard had moved operations across the harbor. For the first time in decades, the Wood Island Life-Saving Station stood empty. The rescue missions were over, and the building that had once been filled with purpose fell silent.
At first, it probably didn't seem like a big deal. Buildings are abandoned all the time. But years turned into decades, and decades turned into generations.
As time passed, the station slowly began to deteriorate. Windows broke, the roof began failing, water found its way inside, and the harsh New England weather took its toll.
By the time many people saw the station in later years, it was a shadow of its former self. Sections of the structure were collapsing, vegetation was reclaiming the property, and wildlife had moved in.
During our interview, JD described seeing the station during this period. Before the restoration, before the museum, before the tours. The building was falling apart. There were holes in the roof. Bats were living inside. And parts of the station looked as though they may not survive much longer.
But sometimes, a place finds a way to capture someone's imagination. And for J.D. Barker, that place was Wood Island. The more he learned about the station, the more fascinated he became. Not just by the building itself, but by everything that had happened there.
The quarantine hospital, the prisoners, the shipwrecks, the rescues, the tragedies, the mysteries, the ghost stories. Layer after layer of history, all connected to one small island.
And as he dug deeper, those stories eventually inspired a novel. There's Something I Keep Upstairs.
A story rooted in isolation, secrets, history, and the unsettling feeling that some places never truly let go of their past.
But while JD was uncovering the island's past, another story was unfolding. One that would determine whether the station itself survived. By the early 2000s, the building's condition had become so poor that demolition was seriously being considered.
In 2009, a committee reviewing the future of the property recommended tearing the structure down. For many, it seemed inevitable. The station had been abandoned for decades, and restoring it appeared nearly impossible.
But not everyone was ready to let Wood Island disappear.
Local residents, historians, preservationists, and volunteers began fighting to save the station. Eventually, the Wood Island Life-Saving Station Association was formed, and what followed was years of fundraising, planning, and restoration work.
Millions of dollars were ultimately invested into preserving the property. Volunteers donated countless hours. Historic materials were salvaged, and piece by piece, the station came back to life.
Yeah, I think Then JD said that during the restoration process, a local resident he became friends with, I think, is the one who helped raise all this money, and then they became friends, and then that's how, the book and him intertwined. A building that had once seemed destined for demolition was given a second chance.
JD eventually became friends with members of the restoration team while researching and writing his novel.
And today, visitors touring the station can see elements inspired by There's Something I Keep Upstairs. In a way, it's almost like walking through pieces of the story itself.
Yeah, he said that that's kind of cool. The guy that he befriended, helped make the inside match what it looks like in this story.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Which is honestly such a fitting ending for a place like Wood Island, a location whose history inspired fiction and whose preservation helped keep that history alive. For decades, people feared the station would disappear forever. Instead, it survived.
And perhaps that's fitting, because Wood Island had spent centuries surviving, through storms, wars, tragedies, and time itself.
But the question remains, after everything that's happened there, what still remains behind? For our listeners, if you guys have any theories or stuff,
send them in, bitches. Send
let
them
us
in.
know. And then also, again, you need to pick up his book. It's pretty good. And if any of you guys live around there or have plans, you guys should also visit, because we want to visit, but just haven't
been able to.
But that's on our bucket list.
That's what happens when you have a job.
Right. Over the course of this episode, we've traveled through more than 4 centuries of history. A history filled with tragedy, survival, loss, and mystery.
We've talked about quarantine hospitals, patients suffering from yellow fever, prisoners isolated from the world around them, and people who arrived on Wood Island hoping to leave, but never did.
We've talked about the surfmen who risked their lives to save complete strangers, the sailors who depended on them, the storms that battered the coastline, and the generations of people whose stories became part of the island's history.
We've explored reports of hauntings, the mysterious girl seen near the shoreline, the unexplained footsteps, the feeling of being watched, and the countless stories that have become part of Wood Island's legend.
We've also talked about something very real. The discovery of 2 unidentified sets of human remains in 1972. A mystery that remains unsolved to this day.
No names, no answers, no explanation. Just another question mark and an island already filled with them.
And JD shared something that really stayed with us. The idea that what we know about Wood Island may only represent a fraction of what actually happened there.
And honestly, that's probably true. Because no matter how much research exists, history is incomplete. For every story that survives, there are countless others that don't.
People forgotten by time. Events never documented. Conversations never recorded. Lives that simply disappeared into history.
Which brings us back one final time to the quote that opened this episode. A quote JD shared with us during our interview.
For a haunted house to be born, somebody has to die.
Maybe that's why Wood Island continues to fascinate so many people. Not because of one ghost story, not because of one tragedy, but because the island has witnessed centuries of both.
Maybe the island is haunted. Maybe it isn't. Maybe the footsteps, the sightings, and the strange experiences have explanations we'll eventually understand.
Or maybe some places simply hold on to their past a little longer than others. Whatever the truth may be, one thing seems certain. Wood Island has never been an ordinary place.
And after everything that's happened there, it's easy to understand why so many people leave feeling as though they've experienced something they can't quite explain.
And before we close tonight's episode, we'd like to extend a special thank you to best-selling author J.D. Barker.
Not only for joining us on Veils of Echo recently, but for sharing his research, experiences, and personal connection to Wood Island.
His insights helped us better understand the history of this remarkable place and the stories that continue to surround it.
And if you'd like to experience a fictional story inspired by the island's history, please be sure to check out JD's novel, There's Something I Keep Upstairs. So tonight's question is this: do you believe places can hold on to the energy of the past, or do you think every haunting has a rational explanation?
Let us know what you think on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or by emailing us directly at veilofechoespodcast@gmail.com.
And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please consider leaving us a rating and written review on Apple Podcast or Spotify.
Not only does it help the show grow, but it helps more listeners discover Veil of Echoes.
And who knows, your review may even be featured on an upcoming episode.
And next Friday, we leave the lonely shores of Wood Island behind and venture deep into the darkness of another legend.
A creature said to stalk isolated roads, lurking beneath bridges, and watching from the tree line.
Some describe it as half man, half beast. Others believe it's something far older. Something far more sinister.
A legend that has terrified witnesses for generations.
The Goat Man.
Monster. Murderer. Or myth.
Join us next Friday as we step into one of America's most chilling urban legends. And as always, thank you for listening to Veil of Echoes, where every story leaves a trace, and some echoes never fade.
Until next time, keep your ears open
And the veil closed.